No, you don't need. You don't need the.
I'm doing this my way. He a legend. 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 He a legend.
Fucking on it though. Then
He
you
a
can't put it
legend.
up later.
Welcome to the league. To the league. To the league. To the league. To the league of items. Welcome to the league. To the league. To the league. To the league. To the league of items.
What's up, everybody? It's Pikel with League of Items, and today I'm joined by Gelati. Gelati, wave hi to the fans.
How's it going, everybody?
And today we're going to talk about prop bets and futures for Worlds, which is starting tomorrow. So, Gelati, we talked a little bit before things got started, and I think we should just dive into the first game because you and I have a propensity to be long-winded.
Yep.
So we're going to get straight into the action, force ourselves to focus a little bit, and then
Yeah.
we'll do all the tangential stuff during.
Cool.
Okay, so Top Esports and FlyQuest is where we're going to go first. So there are a bunch of different prop bets, but in order for us to fully understand the way that they're like setting the lines for these things, you also have to understand the money line that's being offered. So Top Esports minus 900, FlyQuest plus 500. Before we started the video, you said you have a tough time believing that a lot of these teams are actually that huge of a dog, especially in a best of one format, and I completely agree because if we went back to the LPL and we took out every first game of a series and use that as the final records for these teams, they'd be fundamentally different. And like the wild swings of opinions and perception that we have based off of something that happens in like the play-in stage would have been happening the entire year in China. But they've been doing best of threes and Korea does best of three. So we have this perception that they're so much more consistent. So what do you think about that? How would you speak to that?
So I think in general, and you see this a lot with particularly fans that watch mostly the Western regions, is there's this propensity to overreact. It's kind of like the NFL culture, right? Where we're used to like one game a week and we think about it for a week. We
Yeah.
see 2 games a week from these teams and we just digest and analyze the hell out of them and we overreact to them in every way possible. And, you know, there's almost always overreactions and stuff. So I do think, yeah, it's fundamentally different. Like if you just pull, I think the LCK did it at some point where they literally pulled all the records for just first games. I think KT was like the best team in the league or something.
That's funny.
Like at least at some point, I think it was in spring. But yeah, it's a fundamentally different thing. Best of ones and best of threes. There's less room for adjustment. I think you know this watching, you know, the Western or the Western leagues. There's more of a general preparation. Like you prepare like a vanilla game plan for a week. Like you'll prepare, you know, this plan in isolation and then maybe a backup plan.
Mm-hmm.
You prepare a lot less for the specific opponent you're playing against a lot of the time. Just because it's best of one and you don't know what to expect and you don't always want to prepare for one thing that's not a repeatable, actionable thing. So you see a lot less like cheesing, even though you would think best of one encourages that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I think these leagues are more equipped for this. Another thing I'll mention about this game specifically, and really the first 2 days in particular, is these have been on the for teams that weren't the play-in teams for a lot of these matchups that like this group draw happened weeks ago, right? So FlyQuest and Top Esports have known for weeks that they're going to be playing against each other.
Yeah.
Hypothetically speaking, this is the most prepared FlyQuest is ever going to be for this game, right? So I tend to give dogs a bump on the first day or two, or especially in the first game that they play until teams know what they're doing.
Yeah.
So this is a spot I'm probably interested in FlyQuest a little bit on this one. This is too big a number for me for a best of one, and I think Top's way better than FlyQuest, but this is a big number.
Yeah.
It's 5-1 to win one game. Anything can happen in a single game, especially in season 10. It's a pretty, you know, the parity of the game itself is pretty condensed. So I think there's smaller gaps I think between the best teams and the mediocre teams, I'd say.
Yeah. So in regards to like teams preparing for an individual opponent or like for the meta in general, I think this is one of the big disconnects I have with the professional scene is like teams don't have these wide sweeping opinions about the meta that translate from team to team, which is like kind of nonsense to me. Like if League of Legends is a closed system, all of the champions from patch to patch are the exact same, all the items are the exact same. There aren't hard enough opinions about those aspects of the game which are completely predictable. Like why not focus on those things and then deal with your opponent afterwards? Because like it doesn't matter who is piloting Graves plus Warrior plus another item. It doesn't matter who that person is, because most of these people are close enough in skill level. But let's start taking a look at some of these props. So for the money line, you said that you might be interested in taking FlyQuest. I think it's interesting. I think that the angle is not that bad. In terms of like individual lane matchups, I would get a little freaked out. But specifically in the jungle, I think that Santorin against Karsa is probably a lot closer than people would think, and a lot of it has to do with the champion pools. So Karsa, a Lee Sin player for the most part, has taken on some of these other champions, but it's not his go-to play style. It's not the natural fit. So I think Santorin does have some chances there, and for that reason, some of these props are even a little more interesting. So the FlyQuest, betting on them to win outright, I think we agree that there's a chance that happens, but let's take a look at some of the actual props. So to destroy the first tower, and instead of speaking to it, you can either speak to it directly or you can speak about the idea behind the prop itself, because you'll think, or if people who are watching this video look at the lines themselves, they would realize, like, in this game it's minus 275 to the favorite, but in this other game it's only minus 120 to the favorite to destroy the first tower. So could you speak to why that might be the case?
Yeah, so in general, the way the books price these prop markets, specifically like these firsts and like a lot of the dragon totals and stuff like that and kill spreads, the way they price them is based on the money line, and then every once in a while you'll see some influence from the actual statistics for the teams for the season. Like, if there's a heavy favorite, but that heavy favorite only takes dragon 40% of the time, then the spread on this is going to be, the first dragon. If they only take first dragon 40% of the time, they're not going to be a minus 275 to take the first dragon. They might be minus 150 still, and have a sub 50% take rate, but it's just because it's boosted. Everything is like multiplied by the money line in a way.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the way they come up with these. That's the way they originate these lines. So when you have a big favorite like this, one of the things I like to do is a small wager on the money line, a small, maybe like half stake on the kill spread. In this case, it's 10.5, which is a lot. That's one of the biggest spreads you're going to see. Period.
Yeah.
And you can get a lot of value in these prop markets because I'll ask you, you coach at a high level, right? How often is just a dragon for Herald trade happen?
Yeah.
Right.
That's
other than these weird 5v5 Herald things that have been popping up recently. I don't know what is going on with that, but
that's a good point.
You see that happen all the time.
Yeah. So a lot of the times when I talk about matchups, I'll say something like, we might think this is a good matchup for LGD against random play-in team because LGD is the better team. But their plan to win the game is not necessarily get the most kills possible, which is what we want for DraftKings, so which frustrates a lot of people. So you need to understand their not inspiration. They're like, what's going to help them win? Like, what are they focused on as opposed to what you're focused on? We're all focused on kills. They're all focused on winning the game. So in terms of Dragon, a lot of the times, if you're the team that is not the stronger early game team, you can easily justify trading Rift Herald for the first dragon, especially if it's not a dragon that blends in well with your team composition. And that
happens all the time.
Yeah, that's one of the big issues that I have with some of these prop markets, and I think this is part of the reason why books are afraid of giving live stuff, because if I knew in the pick ban phase what champions were being played, that would fundamentally change how I think all of these lines should play out. And that's really something that we're not going to... I just think it's really tough to find an edge like before we go into the game outside of like there's too much value. If this was a random game, the underdog gets the first tower, like, let's say 40% of the time. So 40% compared to the plus 200 to be like, okay, that's worth it. Like, maybe take that bet. I think it is more highly correlated with certain teams, like where they just take every single objective first and they just snowball the game out of control because of talent discrepancies. But
I think a lot of times, so the other thing with props is, and we're going to talk about this for like future stuff too, is that people kind of get hooked and they want to keep piling on when really you need to be more selective and pick your spots on these. In this case, with a money line this large, this is a large money line. This is an obscene money line for a best of one.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think what we saw Cloud9 minus 1,400 a couple times this season, right?
Yeah.
Like, and in those cases, it's like, okay, I just have to take a shot on this because it could happen, right? Like, they're not. So in those kind of cases, these are the kind of spots where you almost want to just like close your nose and take one of these prop bets if the numbers are appropriate to the money line. So in this case, like top esports isn't 80%, like isn't 80%, or they're like not 75% to take the first dragon, right? Like they're not like this
Exactly.
way closer to a coin flip kind of situation, and you're getting good value on FlyQuest in that spot. Now you'll see, like as we go through this, when the money lines are closer, these are a lot closer, and that's when you have to kind of entail like, okay, what do I think the game plan is going to be? What do I think the draft is going to look like? Is this going to be a more, is this going to be like a dragon centric, look for this team or not? Like, and a lot of times, if there's nothing there's nothing actionable, and it's just the juice eating away at the percentage for you or the vigorous, then there's no play for it, so you just pass.
Yeah.
But in a spot like this, it's pretty hard not to like. Is Top seriously going to like completely shut this game out? You're basically betting on a shutout in this case.
Yeah, so let's
Top esports.
let's talk about that in relation to some specific props. So according to the lines that are being offered, you would basically, if I was a bettor that has never watched a game of League of Legends before in my life, and I looked at the money line and it was minus 900, and I saw Destroy Inhibitor is minus 800, I would think to myself that's a highly correlated outcome. If Top Esports is a team that's going to win, they're going to be the first team to destroy an inhibitor like an exorbitant amount of the time, and I think that's pretty accurate. I think that the killing the Baron being minus 400, there might actually be value on there. If the money line is correct, then you have value on killing Baron first.
Yeah, on these correlated props, absolutely. Yeah,
but,
you're right.
But the thing is, it's like, even if that's the case, do you really want to expose yourself that much to these kinds of props?
To a Baron steal,
to
like a Lee Sin,
exactly.
jumps over the wall and just fluke steals it. It might not even impact the game whatsoever,
And that's the thing that kind of scares me. And then for like Dragon, so I think we both agree this number is kind of insane for Top Esports, so definitely more likely to bet FlyQuest for first Dragon. Tower, I think, is another spot where I think the first Tower and the first Baron, like once you get that first objective under your belt, where it's a tower. I have this theory where it's like the positional advantage of League of Legends, and the towers really play into that, because once you're at a tower disadvantage, it's very difficult to overcome it.
Jungle and
because exactly you're not only down towers, now you're losing control of your jungle. You're going to have
double swing because you're not getting it and they are, and it snowballs on itself.
And like the vision and everything like that. So those things do kind of compound with each other. So let's keep going. So for the kills, I'm not someone who typically bets on kill spreads and stuff like that. But in general, what percentage of games do you think finish within 5 to 6 kills?
Like the League of Legends key numbers are 5, like they're 5 and 6 kills a lot of time, and then depending on the metagames, like with big favorites, it's usually like closer to 7.
Okay.
Right? So like those middle numbers are like the key numbers in League. Like in football, we have 3 and 7, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like 3, 7, and 8 are like the key numbers in the NFL, and then I get like 4 and 6 are the other ones. So those are like the key numbers for League, but a lot of times it just depends on the metagame. That changes over the course of the year. It changes patch to patch. I think in this case, it's probably going to be like, those middle numbers, 6.5.
So that's interesting, because like I guess the break points are where you start asking yourself different questions. So if it was 5, you'd say how likely is this team to be the winning team? If it's 6, anything over 5, you have to ask yourself, not only is this team going to win, but is the losing team going to continuously throw themselves at the winning team? And that's where these leads, the kill scores can kind of get out of control.
Yeah, one of the things I do is I calculate average margin of victory and average margin of defeat, like through kills, and you'll notice that certain teams, they don't stomp people. They win a lot of games, but they're not winning by 11 kills. They're not winning by 12 kills. And then you have teams like Gen G that will just blow teams out by an average of 12.5 or something like that, right? I'm just pulling numbers off the top of my head.
And that would be kind of counterintuitive. Like when I think of the teams that are gonna like fountain dive and stuff like that, I think of Top Esports, Damwon Gaming.
Yeah.
Are those two of the teams that typically fall into that? Is that why this number is so high, do you think, or this is more about the money line being 900?
This is more about the money line being 900. They almost never factor in the actual, like, they, as far as I can tell, books don't factor in like margin of victory whatsoever, or margin of defeat for that matter either.
So another question for like the NFL, I know that like when you're doing spreads, it's based off of win shares, right? Where it's like a half a point is equal to 1 win, so 1 point equals 2 wins. Is there anything in regards to like kill spreads that like the the half a kill actually represents like a
I haven't.
percentage
I'll
of
be
wins?
honest with you. I haven't gone that deep on it, and I think it's too variant a thing compared to NFL scoring, which is literally set. Like you score in increments of this, which
Yeah,
is why it
exactly,
falls
because
that
you
way.
need to score
Kills,
points to win. You don't need to get
it's
kills
too
to win.
variant. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I think it depends on the book you're looking at, but it ends up being like in the 30 cent range, like per kill.
Hmm.
But sometimes, again, it depends patch to patch, and they go. If they set a money line and it ends up a certain way, and the kill spread was this, they're not going to adjust it at all. So, which is why there's edges that can be had in this kind of thing, because the books are being basically lazy about this and just running whatever the numbers say.
Yeah.
So 10.5 is a lot. 10.5 is the kind of kill spread you only really see when like Damwon's playing Sandbox or Damwon's playing APK or something like that. So Soleil won now.
Yeah.
Uh,
And I'm assuming
you
the hit rate's
almost
bad,
never
right?
see what's up.
I'm assuming the hit rate is bad too. So like even though
Oh,
it's
on
10,
laying 10, yeah.
Yeah.
On laying 10, it's pretty bad. You almost always want to take the underdogs in these spots. They're like, I think they're like 60% plus, if I remember correctly. But a lot of times it's just because the dog or the favorite is way overpriced.
Yeah.
Especially in best of ones too. It's like, these games can be close. Also, a lot of these favorites, like, what's to say this isn't an 18 to 8 kind of game, right? Or even less than that. Could be like 12-3.
Yeah, and that's where you need to depend on the losing team. It's like in football, you need to depend on the losing team to score X amount of points to feel comfortable with the over/under. So let's go to the over/under 26.5. I think that Top Esports is kind of a lock for like the 16 to 18 range. Like that, they should be able to get that in their sleep. Like even when they play against JDG, their lowest kills was in the finals was what 12 or 14, and that was because it was like just a
and that was a weird
kind
game
of game.
too. Top are generally pretty high scoring in wins, just in general. A lot of the big LPL favorites are. LGD are like the lowest. They score the lowest in wins, which is weird because they tend to jump out on people a lot of the time.
Yeah,
but they tend to slow it down once they're there. But like Top, JDG, I mean they're not here, but like Invictus, Suning are a little bit weird in this. But Top and JDG especially do tend to kill their opponents pretty bad when they win. So in terms of overs, a lot of time I'd like to factor in. What I do is I correlate kills per game, kills per minute, and then I project the time total as well. I have a separate thing, and I have like a matrix for it and everything that I do. And I can weight it. You can odds weight it. You can do all sorts of different things with it. And generally speaking, it's just like in regular sports where people are. It's priced that people are going to bet the over, right? The way these turn out, everything's priced the way everything's going to bet the over because nobody wants to bet an under. Nobody wants to bet no. Nobody wants to bet like big underdogs because that's like the ugly thing, and it's like a psychology thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And books know that, so they break ties in favor of an over, so they're going to juice it that way or they're going to price it that way. So a lot of times it's more often to go under, especially in games where there's like a big favorite like this. Unless you think the underdog is particularly feisty, then you're almost always looking at an under in this case. I know the play-in stage was highly variant this year. A lot of times there's like, again, like those key numbers, like it settles in at a certain number where you see a majority of the games fall within 22 and 25 kills or something like that, and you'll see like 70% of the games fall within those numbers, right? But the play-in stage was widely variant. Now the play-in teams are different, but I would look at this when totals. It's almost more like a game script thing.
Yeah.
Where like how do you project this game playing out? Just like off the top of your head here.
I would say that FlyQuest gives away a couple of the first objectives because they think that if they wait enough time and hit a certain item spike that they could fight Top Esports around a specific dragon or Rift Herald, and then that's how they'd want to go after it. Or you do some kind of lane swapping thing where you try to get a really good matchup in the top lane where like maybe you bait them into picking a carry champion and then you have some kind of 4-man dive onto the carry champion while 2 objectives are being traded or something.
Yeah,
that's
so,
the
like,
easiest way to look at it.
Big
I think.
big picture. It's do you think FlyQuest have something spicy cooked up for this? Like, are they going to cheese or do something weird and unique?
Yeah. So those cheese things would make me feel like the under is the better play. Well, see, that's a weird thing. If they have this play and it fails, then I think the under
definitely an under.
Then the under is going to win. If they have one of these cheese plays and it works, then it could be under because they play the rest of the game slow, or it could be over because the next time that they try to take one of these fights or make another kind of play or one of these weird trades, Top Esports just gets an ace, and then the game kind of gets out of control. So that's kind of what would scare me about the over. Because like how often do you think it's going to be like 20-6? Like
Yeah.
That's what would scare me is like you could have this.
I think this is an under. Like I'll be betting the under in this match because even hypothetical. Even the other thing to consider is in a FlyQuest win, right? FlyQuest actually were pretty high kill totals in their wins this season.
Yeah.
Just in general, not every game, but just in general, because they tend to play when they win. It's because they were getting ahead a lot of the time, and they group and fight. They fight pretty frequently. So there's some of that to be baked into this too.
If FlyQuest wins, I think it's an over. Because I think it's like top. I kind of noticed this in the play-in stage. If you're a team from a quote-unquote better region, you don't respect the other team as much.
Yeah.
It's not like we see, Top Esports against JDG, they're playing the game this way because they understand that it's a close match. If they make one mistake, the game can kind of go on its head. But Top Esports against FlyQuest, if they're down 4 kills, they're like, we're only down probably 2,000 or 3,000 gold. Let's just fight them. We'll probably beat them. So that kind of plays hand in hand with the First Blood stuff. So First Blood, similar to First Tower, it doesn't have a gigantic impact on the rest of the game because sometimes you invest so much trying to get this First Blood that the other team gets like a farm advantage or can steal several of your camps in the jungle or can make a play for a tower.
First Blood, I'll just say this. First Blood is like the least correlated of like the main props that you get.
Yeah.
Other than like some of these weird exotic markets. Like of the main props, the First Blood is like the least correlated because there are good teams that don't get they get 40% First Blood rate, and First Blood doesn't have that strong of a correlation to wins either.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're looking at First Blood props, you want to look for teams that make it a priority, teams that actually focus on doing that, teams that are consistent at getting it. Like LGD, Peanut had First Blood in all but one game in the entire playing stage. Now obviously level competition is different, but that kind of played out that way during the regular season too. Like until the end of the season, LGD were like the First Blood kings. Like they were like 60% for like a good majority of the entire calendar year. It wasn't even just summer. So they made it. To me, that shows. There's obviously a little variance with this stuff too, but to me that shows like, and you can see it in their gameplay. Like they make it a priority to get the ball rolling early, right?
Yeah.
So if that's the case, and they're against a team that's focused more on holding control or trading a herald or trading a dragon for that, or like trading resources instead of getting ahead on resources like that way, then those are opportunities you take. But don't look at the money line and be like, they're gonna get First Blood because they're 900 favorite. Right.
So let's take a look at these final 4 props that get offered for every single game, and then we'll start looking at some other stuff. So like the reason we wanted to go through these is to give you kind of the logic that you need to use to figure out if you like a side for one of these types of bets. So for the over-under on towers, dragons, barons, and inhibitors, I think these are all very interesting numbers because for towers, for the uninitiated, there are 11 towers on each side. This prop and the winners, I don't know what the actual statistic on this is, but I feel like most teams that win average 10 or more towers. Like how often do you see games where it's like they take the middle inhibitor, they break bottom, they take the bot inhibitor, they take both of the towers, they end the game, and like the top inhibitor tower is left open, but everything else on the map is taken. Like that happens sometimes. You don't really see a winning team with like 7, where it's like they didn't touch top lane all game. They just had this
every once in a while. It's not very common. Yeah,
exactly.
So here's the trick, right? Most teams, that's the trick, right? Is what is most? What's the percentage of most? Because when you obviously there's implied odds with these things. There's implied odds calculators all over the place. You can say like, okay, this is a 50% chance of happening, right? Plus 100 to go over 11.5, just for example, right? So you need to ask yourself not just how many towers are going to be taken, but like if that's the case that most of the time most of the towers on the map are taken, or most of the time the winning team gets 9 or 10.
Most of the time it's 11. I feel like
most of the time it is 11.
Yeah, the most common number would have to be 11. Yeah.
It's like the instruction manual ending, right? The tutorial ending they call it, right? So like the clean win.
If it's a close game, it's almost always 11. Yeah.
So the trick with this is you're assuming you now have to calculate how often does that happen? Is most of the time 80% of the time, or is most of the time 55% of the time? So you have to go through and figure this out. You can look, like, it's pretty easy to look up. You can look up towers per game for all these teams. towers and wins, towers and losses. These take a little bit more legwork to figure these numbers out.
Mm-hmm.
But generally speaking, this kind of number, you want to look at it in terms of like, is this going to be a close game or not? Is there going to be a lot of trading, or is one team just going to dominate? The over, there's a reason the juice is on the over.
Yeah.
Right? In a lot of these, I don't know where you're looking.
Well,
but,
actually, so right now I have the number's 11.5, and the under is -138. Over is +100. So I was gonna bet over.
Yeah, I would take over here because I think under 11.5 means you think top esports are gonna
11-0.
Yeah, they're gonna 11-0, or
Yeah.
they're gonna smash 2 lanes down and just win with 1 lane left up.
The way,
or like maybe they took a tier 1 tower or something.
The other question I would ask in this scenario would be like, the bet would be, does FlyQuest kill 1 tower? Does FlyQuest kill 2 towers?
That's the way you break it down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so then
like you take that's another way to look at it, which is like you take we'll give a benefit of the doubt and say like top take maybe 9 towers instead of the full 11,
Mm-hmm.
right? Maybe they leave 1 lane open, they snowball a win, they take 9 towers. Do you think FlyQuest get 2? Do you think they get 3? Because that's the question you're really asking.
Yeah,
right?
especially
3 towers is much different than 2 towers.
So
and you know that
it must be funny. Like I guess this was like 2016 when the lane swapping meta was very popular. I mean, the over under for towers was probably the easiest bet ever if they weren't paying attention, because every single game started with 2 towers being taken off the map. So
yeah, there was a couple of weeks there where it was free money, but
Yeah.
you know, once they realized like, oh, there's like 18 towers per game being taken,
Yeah.
we can't just keep floating.
Well, maybe we can get something like that now. Okay, so let's take a look at dragons. So dragons, I think, if in this meta, this is probably the time where it's more likely for 5 dragons or more to be taken, because the losing teams think to themselves, we need to give ourselves another 6-minute buffer to scale into the late game and contest a Baron fight. So I would say, and it is shaded towards the over. It's -125 at 4.5. I would say over is probably the way to go, and that's because you can either look at it as the winning team gets 4 dragons plus an Elder Dragon, which is like the methodical way to win. But since the money line is so high, like that's probably where people are kind of ambivalent. It's like, okay, well, you know, I do like them to take 4 dragons, maybe an Elder Dragon, but if they win such a high percentage of the time, how often do they really need to take that Elder Dragon to finish off the game?
Yeah, this is so like I'll just say this, like overall, like worldwide, each of the leagues kind of has their own tendencies, and it's pretty correlated to game time in general.
Yeah.
Which makes sense, right?
Because the timer of the
game
dragons.
time is shorter, probably like a quarter of a dragon less per game.
Yeah.
So the average in the 4 major leagues is about it's a shade over 4.6 dragons per game.
Okay.
So that's why it's shaded to the over in this way. Generally speaking, this is one of those bets where people don't like taking. They don't like taking the under.
Can I take this? I'm going to take this and mute myself. Just keep talking.
Yeah, you're good. This is one of those spots where people generally don't like taking the. They don't like taking the under on these things. So what ends up happening is, like, an under 4.5 bet on this kind of thing is basically wagering that one of these teams is going to stomp and this is going to be lopsided. If you think the team can win with a soul but without an elder, which happens pretty frequently, then the under is actually the play, and usually you can end up getting plus money. Now, in this case, usually the under 4.5 dragons is like in that plus 110, plus 120 range, sometimes higher. So when there's a big spread in the money line like this, when you're assuming one team is going to stomp the other one, there's not usually it's usually closer to even money or juice to the under in that way, and it's a lot less appealing in that spot because all it takes. This is much like betting an over in traditional sports. Like it requires kind of everything to go right in order for it to happen, right? So, kind of the same logic pertains to the Baron buff as well, like the under 1.5. Like, do you under or over 1.5? You're basically saying this game's gonna go probably 30 mid-30s minutes minimum, and that there will actually be another Baron fight, because a lot of games will go, first Baron's taken somewhere in the mid-20s. And then, you have the push, you have the power play and everything. And, as that happens, a lot of times the game will effectively end without the other Baron buff needing to be taken. So that's why the over on this is juiced a lot more than the over on the dragons, because it's pretty easy it's much less of a sacrifice to get the 5th dragon than it is to get the 2nd Baron, right? So it's a much easier objective to take, even with the even with the rest of the game being factored in there too. So yeah. So generally speaking, if the worldwide average is give or take a shade over 4.6 dragons per game, you're generally going to want to take the over in this because far fewer games end on 5 dragons. 5 dragons is like the key number, I guess you would say. So far more games end on 5 than 4.
Sorry about
But
that.
all good, all good. I was basically explaining that, at the risk of saying it again for everybody, but the long and short of it is
Where are we now? What's next?
under 4.5 dragons is a bet on a team stomping the game in probably like
exactly.
29 minutes or less, right?
Yeah.
Because a lot of teams can end on a soul, and the Baron's a little bit different because the threshold for getting to a second Baron means it's probably a mid-30s game. It also means that there wasn't basically a death blow delivered off the first Baron power play.
Yeah.
To the point where, because how often do you see a game that ends in the mid-30s, but there wasn't a second Baron taken because they took 2 inhibitors or 3 inhibitors, and all they need to do was walk up the last lane and end the game.
And that's kind of like the positional advantage I was talking about.
Yeah.
And I think that's also why like the Baron number being under 1.5 and the inhibitor number being over 1.5, like those seem connected because if you get Baron, you should be able to take at least 1 inhibitor. Once you take that first inhibitor, the chances of you taking a second inhibitor are much higher. But let's go into the other kinds of futures that are listed. Yeah. So do you have access to Bet365? Let me.
Yes, I do.
All right, so I'm on the.
So you go ahead and pull that up. I'm just going to give some like general thoughts on futures, just in like big picture ideas, right? So there's a bunch of different kinds of markets for futures, right? They're very different than a traditional bet because most of the time you're betting on a higher amount of possible outcomes. So when there's more possible winners, you need to treat things differently, and that's why the odds are higher. The trade-off is that there's higher vig, higher juice, higher rake taken by the book, right? Usually on futures, there's and this is pretty universal to most sports, there's anywhere between like a 17 to 30% rake by the book if you compile all the numbers together. So you need to be really, really selective in these kind of things, especially the ones with bigger markets like MVP voting or, outrights for a team to win, right?
Yeah.
Betting on like an outright is basically you're betting on a lot of things going your way. Another thing is that there's a lot of different markets and they all require different strategies and approaches. We'll touch on that in a little bit. And I think the most important part about futures is that you don't really get caught up in like having a lot of them unless you have a specific game plan to do so. Mm-hmm. Because what happens, a lot of people is like they treat futures a lot more recklessly than they would treat an individual bet. For whatever reason, it's like there's a psychological barrier here because there's just more going on. It's extended over a long period. It's a long-term investment, right? So there's a different psychology about it. People are way looser with their futures wagers, but you need to keep in mind that there's higher vig on these things. So technically you're betting into a worse market for you. So you need to have a good reason for doing them, and you need to have a clear strategy when you're going after it.
Yeah.
So generally speaking, I set a smaller percentage of my bankroll aside for futures, and I have that, and I leave it at that, and I don't dip into my main thing for it. That way you keep limited, and you want to set up situations where your like worst theoretical payout will cover all of your entries.
That's how I approach it too. So let's
so kind of like DFS, like a lot of cash players will play like enough cash games where like if they hit at a certain rate, their cash games cover their tournament entries.
Yeah.
So that they're always net a little bit at some point. That's the way a lot of the cash players do things.
Yeah. So the first prop that they have up here is name the finalists. That is a complete sucker bet, right? You don't want to have to name both teams. I think you froze. All right, you're back?
Yeah, I'm back. Sorry about that.
All right, so the first one is name the finalists. Name the finalists. Naming both of them is a sucker bet, correct?
Yeah.
All right, moving on. Let's not even waste our time. To win outright, I think that the only teams that I would be interested in betting would be Suning and LGD.
Yeah. So a couple things with this one. So first of all, the outright market has already been hit. So this is basically cooked down to what everyone thinks now. Like the market is now, I would call it efficient.
Yeah.
Or as efficient as it's going to be. This is not the NFL, folks. We're not quite to that level yet where the market is tight in 6 hours from the lines being posted. So But that said, they did make adjustments after play-ins. They made adjustments after, some news and stuff like that, and they probably made adjustments for money coming in. I got Damwon at plus 400. They're now plus 260. Top esports, you could get a plus 240 range, plus 250 range. They're now plus 175, right? The thing with outright bets, outrights are kind of a unique thing because it's a lot like options trading, or like, it's a lot like options trading because you can maybe own a stock and insulate yourself from losses. And the way I kind of look at it is if you're going to play outrights outside of recreational purposes, which is for whatever, if you want to do that, that's cool. If you want to play futures and outrights for money, for profit, the way you need to do it, especially for outrights, is to have a hedging game plan.
Sure.
So when I invest in, I'll use an example from play-ins, right? LGD were minus 5,000 to win their group.
Yeah.
Not to get out of their group, to win their group. I think we all agree in a 4-game format that's obscene. All it takes is 1 game or 2 games to go weird, and it did for things to go wrong. So for me, there's absolutely no reason for me to lay that money with LGD. When that number got so high, it was literally profitable to bet a little bit on all 4 of the teams in that group. And then what ended up happening, they lost the first 2 games, and they were put in a position where if they, going into their 3rd game, if they lost that, they could not possibly win the group, right? They got down to like a reasonable money line in that game. So I had futures that totaled to make me, say, for example, like 12 units, right? Plus 1,200%, right? When they come into that game and the money line shrunk down, I can now hit that in a way that I can maybe guarantee a profit. Right, I can hedge. I can guarantee an 8-unit profit or something like that, or 6, or whatever the math ends up being. That's the way you need to play futures. You need to play it with a game plan, and I think a lot of people just bet them and they let them sit, and what will be will be. If you're going to play outrights, you need to have a game plan, and usually that entails not doing the favorites. And if you're going to get on the favorites, it needs to be early on when they first post these, not like right before the tournament.
Yeah. So let's think about this from the perspective of like if for some reason, the reason I think the LGD numbers potentially good is because everybody has a negative opinion of LGD right now.
Yeah.
So that seems like a number I'd be somewhat interested in. TSM relative to the other Western teams that are like up here, I feel like that number is not good enough. The Team Liquid one is maybe close to being bettable, but like a lot of these games, if I have a future on DRX and they're up against like Damwon in the semifinals, I'm not going to feel good with a lot of my hedging options, like because I'd have to bet so much money on Damwon at like minus 170 to beat the team that I actually want to win anyways. Like, what am I actually saving for that bet?
Yeah. So there's calculators for all this kind of stuff too. You can just Google them. There's a whole bunch of them readily available. I will say this: like, if you don't have the bankroll to play it this way, then you need to just admit that you're playing these recreationally, which is fine. But this hedging plan requires a bit of a bankroll to do, right? So. Because you're going to end up in situations where you'd be betting way more on a side than you ever would, right? I mean, I ended up in a situation like this for the Super Bowl last year where it's like, well, I was going to make money either way, so all I needed to do is, I needed capital. I needed a principal to be able to put on the line to cover and guarantee the most I could possibly cover. So if you don't have the bankroll for this, and you're just playing this recreationally, I think there's a little bit of a different strategy to it, and I think there's different markets you could play than outrights for more for more fun recreational money.
So let's check out
for me like outrights.
Like.
I don't know, you like. I think Sooning's still a good value. I got them at 23 to 1. I got them at 23 to 1, and I got them at 21 to 1 to reach the final.
Wow,
that was earlier in the season, so I like that quite a bit. A lot of times with outrights, if you're strictly looking for like long shots or like these middle of the table like dark horse kind of teams, is try to craft yourself a story that says like, okay, what needs to go right? Do a lot of things need to go right, or only a couple? And is this team being undervalued? Because a lot of times in futures markets, and we'll see this with some of these other ones too, the VIG's very high, but the VIG is all concentrated toward the top.
Yeah, exactly.
So the more valuable or closer to even EV and plus EV bets are middle and bottom of the table because nobody thinks those teams are going to win. So they can kind of hide the VIG in a weird way in these futures bets. So I like taking some shots. If you like some of these middle of the table teams, I think, how many situations does it take for Fnatic to have a good tournament? Not that many, right? Like if it's a metagame where Nemesis doesn't matter that much, like I could see Fnatic doing well, and they always have a history of elevating at this tournament.
That's what I'm kind of against though, because I think we've seen that narrative so many times. That's when it's like that's when it becomes a public side kind of thing. So I'd be afraid of it. But I think
Like to me, Suning and Fnatic are somewhat similar in that I don't think it takes that many things going in their favor. I think for the most part, those two teams, I think Suning more so than Fnatic, because I think there is a barrier of skill, right? There's a skill barrier here.
Mhm.
I think we'll talk about Suning, for instance. For Suning, I think the only thing that needs to happen in this tournament is that it's not like entirely on the mid lane kind of tournament. Like entirely kind of like if it's a metagame where we're getting Azir Corki. Yeah, if we're getting Azir Corki or Orianna Azir, like those kind of matchups in the mid lane, or a Zoe Azir, right? If we're getting those kind of matchups in the mid lane every game, the fact that Angel maybe isn't quite as good as some of these like truly elite mid laners doesn't matter as much, right? And then all of a sudden, Suning look like a really good team, right? So they're like on par with the elite teams in this tournament.
Yeah.
So that's the kind of spots I like to pick. I think Suning's still a great candidate at 16-1.
Yeah.
Because what if they make quarterfinals? Now you're in a spot where you can bet against them if there's a team that you think is going to beat them, and you're probably going to get a pretty good number on it. And lock in a profit.
I could also see DRX being a good bet, but let's go to the next one. So let's go to reach the final. I'm not betting to reach the final on anything at this point. What about?
Yeah, again, these have been cooked down quite a bit.
What about region of winner? Do you have any?
Region of winner, I love the LPL here, but it's because the cool thing with futures is, again, like options trading, you can kind of set yourself up to guarantee a profit on things. Do you realistically see the LEC or the LCS winning?
No.
This tournament? No. Okay. Well, you can kind of insulate yourself a little bit if you want to do some long shots on the teams that you think might do well. But the way I played this, and again, I got this earlier in the offseason, the numbers were a little bit better, is I played pretty heavily on the futures for the LCK teams because the numbers for them were better.
Sure.
Specifically, Gen G and Dragon X had great numbers, right? So I went heavy on them, in the between 15 to 22 to 1 range, right? And what I did is I came back on and I just went heavy on LPL to win it. So now I'm in a situation where if the LPL wins it, I've covered all my entries, right? If the LPL wins, I end up like, net zero. Or net, a small amount, right?
Yeah.
Whereas the LCK wins, I'm going to be way up.
Oh, sure,
It's a big payday. So you can kind of set these situations up. So again, hard to do that now, but
I get it.
You can look at these different markets and kind of match them up in ways where you're creating a synthetic bet for yourself.
I think that it's funny, like, because there aren't many sports books that I trust in general. Like, I've gotten burned by random sports books in the past. So with Bet365 having these kinds of lines, I'm more interested and I'm more willing to pay attention to them moving forward. So for something like the LCK, if theoretically Bet365 had these numbers available to New Jersey bettors earlier in the summer, like the storyline that was coming out was LPL is the best region in the world, LEC is number 2. It's like, what the hell are we talking about? That's not even close. It's like I think
you and I agree that I don't know what people were watching.
Yeah, it's just not true. So like if you can get some of these LCK teams, like, doesn't it seem much more likely that we get into like the second week of the tournament and it's like, oh, Deft looks like his back isn't killing him every day, and Keria is carrying the entire team somehow. Like, wow, what a team! How did no one see this coming?
Is that really that shocking? Like, that's
exactly,
what you need to. That's what you need to tell yourself. But like, again, the public sentiment is that would be a little bit surprising.
Yeah. Which
is weird to you and I that watch these games all the time. But these are the kind of things you can take advantage of.
Yeah.
Another thing I'll say is keep an eye out for like they call them arbitrage opportunities, right? Where combine the futures for the LCK teams. Most good books aren't going to offer these opportunities because like the number is just going to be pretty close, right? But because they're separate markets, it's like, do the math on it. Is betting, on all 3 of the LCK teams going to end up being equivalent to LCK region of winner plus 175? Is plus 175 a better number? Then you're better off just betting the 175. So futures disguise a lot of things. So just make sure you're actually doing the math. It does take a little bit of time, takes a little bit of work, but it's worth doing because it's like you're just betting it. I'm losing 40 cents of value or something.
Oh yeah, you're definitely better off betting them all individually, right?
I think in this case, I haven't done it since they updated this, so I don't know. It might just be close to even.
We can just
generally speaking,
Yeah. So let's go to winners group. So Group A is plus 500. That's G2, Machi, Suning, and Team Liquid. Group B is plus 150. That's JDG, Dom1 Gaming, Rogue, and PSG. Group C is plus 600. That's Gen G, LGD, TSM, Fnatic. And then Group D is plus 162. DRX, FlyQuest, Top Esports, Unicorns of Love. So if you had to pick, instead of going through like the rationale behind this, which group would you pick if you had to pick one.
I would play B and D and Garen, and because it's basically not Group A or Group C. Because I think it's going to be Damwon, JDG, or Genji personally.
Yeah.
And Top's in that group too. So like that's why those two are the favorite. And you're in a situation here where you can bet whatever amount, an even amount on each of these, and take the change off the top for free.
Yeah.
Now, if you want to tie that money up this is the other thing with futures. Like if you want to tie your money up for the whole tournament, maybe you don't want to do that. But to me, I think it ends up being a value because I forget the actual math it comes out to. Like the likelihood of the odds are better than the actual I think outcome. So in that case, I think it's actually a value to just do that.
Yeah. I think Group C kind of interests me, but again, these are the kinds of teams that I'd rather just put. Like you can play Gen G. If you're doing 1 unit LGD, 1 unit TSM, that's going to cover almost all of your futures anyway. So why would you do Group C instead of just doing that?
Yeah. And it goes back to the whole thing about like set yourself up in a way where one win covers everything. Yeah, if you can, so that you're basically guaranteeing a profit if any of your darts hit.
Yeah. So let's go next. So next is team versus the field. Top esports plus 175. The field's minus 250.
I like the field here quite a bit.
I agree. Let's move on.
And it's nothing against top either. It's just that's pretty. Do you agree? Like the top 4 teams are all pretty good. I think the top 4 are all very evenly matched, and I think the next 2 or 3, depending on where you put Suning, are like possible. Like they could do it too, right?
I think that 1, 2, 3, 4.
Yeah, to me, there's a clear cutoff between like G2 and Suning. I think it's like Damwon, Genji, JDG, and Top are like the top 4. And I think all of them are pretty even against each other. Even enough that none of them should be heavily favored to win the whole thing, right? I think they can all kind of beat each other.
Yeah.
Maybe you don't think that, but
I think there's probably 3 teams that I like, but
you don't like Genji, I guess, right?
Not really. No, I think they're mentally weak.
So, all right. Okay. Well, either way, if you think there's 3 teams, it's like okay, like 3 teams plus the combined rest of the field too. Right?
Yeah.
That's the way you got to look at it. Be like, okay, like maybe there's a 20% chance somebody that's not, JDG or Damwon beats Top.
I think Damwon's overrated right now too.
That's fair.
But it's close. So let's go next. So the next one is group betting. So I guess this is to win the
group betting is to win the group. Yeah.
And only 3 of them are listed.
Qualifying is to get out of the group. Period.
Yeah. So let's do these ones fast because. I think most people have an opinion on this already. So G2 is minus 120, Suning's plus 225, Team Liquid's plus 600, Machi's plus 1000. I think Suning is the best to bet here. That's basically it. In the second group,
I think Suning is the best value here for sure.
Second group, Damwon minus 175, JDG plus 150. JDG plus 150 is the best bet here. Rogue plus 2000, PSG Talon plus 4000. We agree?
Yeah, I think JDG is the play. I think I could see either of those teams finishing first. A coin flip, you take the plus 150 for sure.
Yep. Group C, Genji minus 138, Fnatic plus 400, TSM plus 550, LGD plus 550. LGD 550 is the play for me. I was saying, when we talked about this last time, I was saying bet the play-in winner because the winner is going to be LGD, and they're not going to be 550 when they get there. But now they're 550 when they got here because they look like shit. So,
of course, right?
So it's pretty funny how that ended up.
Yeah, I think Group C is court of public opinion kind of deal. Like I think you could make arguments for. I mean, you could make an argument for like any 2 of these. I wouldn't bet all 3. It's like not.
Well, I mean, for people who are betting this, I mean, it's great for us because it's like Fnatic is one of the fan favorites. TSM is one of the fan favorites. Genji is like, everybody like they're the team that everybody's using they're from Korea argument when like they don't give.
But
the same
it's weird,
thing
right?
DRX.
Everyone's selective about it. I think LGD and TSM are worth plays here. There are people that are bullish on Fnatic. If you're very bullish on Fnatic and you think they're very good and think they're the second best team in this group, then they're a pretty good value at 400. I don't.
Yeah, I don't think so. I think a lot of it's projection with them. It's like, self-made is good. It's like, well, what has self-made really done? Nothing? Yeah. Oh, okay. Group qualification. We'll I'm not doing group qualification stuff. None of these numbers are
There's not
big.
a lot of value here. I already looked into it.
All right.
Like maybe you've put a lottery like Liquid lottery ticket. I could see them doing some crazy things in that group. That's the only one that really sticks out to me.
Yeah. Next up is
LGD at 200.
Next up is not to lose a map. Top esports to not lose a map in the entire tournament plus 3,300.
No, they'll lose a game. I think there's too many good teams here. They'll drop a game to someone.
Agreed. Stage of elimination. You can bet on the stage of elimination for every single team. Again, I haven't done enough research going into this for this one, but this is pretty interesting for me. The ones that I'm basically not making bets. Obviously, you're not making bets on these teams. You're making bets against specific teams.
Yeah.
So I would bet against G2. I would bet against Fnatic. I'd bet against.
Yep. You would bet against Gen G probably because the value's probably there. If you don't think they're that good.
Nah.
Right, so you don't think they're that bad. You just don't think they're as good as the top three.
Yeah, I think that
that's
they're gonna make it. Well, I'm just saying, like, I wouldn't. If I'm guessing which spot to get knocked out in, it's not going to be the group stage, and the group stage is the one that I'd be interested in. You know, it's like or no, not the group stage. Like, losing quarterfinals. Like if they have a bad quarterfinals matchup because they get matched up with a bad team for them. Like I think that's actually an interesting one, but that's only plus 175. So.
Big picture for these kind of things, I think you want to evaluate based on who you think's getting out. Like who could they play, right? 1 seeds can only play 2 seeds in the top 8, like in the quarters, right?
Okay, sure.
So think about like who's getting out in the 2 seeds with each of these groups, right?
Are the
Who could they
pools
possibly be
decided?
matched up against?
Is it like Group A plays Group C, or is it records?
That's not. They do a draw, but the number 1 seeds can't play other number 1 seeds in the first round of the knockout.
Okay.
So they will always play a number 2 in the first round. So you can kind of go through and figure out like, okay, if you think Suning's getting out second, Suning is a possible opponent for Gen G, right? And you can just go through and do that for each of these teams, and then ask yourself like, okay, what is the likelihood that they lose a series against? If they have 2 tough matchups, suddenly that looks a lot more interesting, right?
Yeah, like Gen G against G2, Gen G against Suning, Gen G against Damwon, Gen G against JDG, exactly. DRX, Top Esports. Yeah, so that's
those are all tough matchups that could all happen, right? Like,
yeah. So at plus 175, you'd have to say what percentage of the teams that they might play in the next round would they beat?
Yeah. In this case, it would have to exceed like give or take 37%, 36.5%. So, yeah. I think it's probably close to 50%. So that's probably a pretty good bet if you think about it. Now, it depends on what you think the group draw is going to be. Or it depends on who you think's getting out of groups. So this is going to be different for each individual person. I think in our situation, I think you and I are mostly on the same page. I think LGD was the only one that we had differently, I think, right? So, and I could totally see that happening too. So let's operate under that assumption. So they could play LGD, either Damwon or JDG. Both, I think they'd be pretty heavy favorites against LGD.
Well, can they play the team from their own group?
Oh no, they can't. Yeah. Sorry.
So that's even worse for them.
Yeah. So it would be either G2 or Suning, either Damwon or JDG, and who am I forgetting?
Top Esports DRX.
Top Esports DRX. That's a pretty hard schedule. And what you could end up doing is you could bet this and then just come back on the other side later and do a hedge opportunity like we were talking about with the outrights, right? So like they're not going to be favored against all of those teams. What if JDG gets second in their group and they get paired against JDG? JDG are going to be favored in that spot, right? So like, but against a lot of these teams, maybe it'll be close to even money. You can have a pretty good hedge spot.
Yeah. So let's look at finals MVP. So is this the kind of thing where they're like the numbers are going to drastically change as the tournament goes on? If you're going to take a shot on a long shot here, like I don't know.
So I'll tell you. I'll tell you how I'm approaching this market, and it's a little bit different than the way we do.
Are you betting
NFL,
into it?
Right?
Are you doing it?
Yeah. So because I have some pretty strong opinions on things, that's the only reason why. The thing you need to know about these, like I call them like needle in the haystack kind of bets, is that you need to have some research, have a reason for what you're doing, and don't bet the top of the board. Because again, all the VIG is concentrated toward the top of the board because they're the favorites, right?
Yeah.
So the way I'm approaching this market, and this is kind of a unique one because unlike traditional sports, we don't have to worry about injuries, right? So it's a little bit better than traditional sports for this kind of thing. I am basically fading all the favorites. And I'm taking the stuff that's like in the middle.
Okay.
So for me, I think, top are the heavy favorite to win the tournament. All of their players are overpriced. So if you're going to take, you need to look at basically the teams that you think could conceivably win, because this is specifically finals MVP, remember.
Mm-hmm.
You need to look at the teams that could conceivably win and find out who the valuable player, like who's undervalued in those situations. For me, I think all top esports are probably overpriced, given the fact that it's pretty unlikely that Yuyanja is going to get an MVP. He could. He's great. But He's 60-61. I think 369 is the only one I would even consider playing.
That's
here.
what I was going to
He's
say.
33.
Yeah.
He's 33 to 1 because I think there's a universe where he gets paired against Nogari and just dumpsters him or something like that,
Mhm.
right? Like just catches good matchups and pops off, right? I will say a lot of people try to point to this and say like there's historically this many. It's pretty diverse. Over the course of the years, there's been a pretty even distribution of the roles. It's not like mid lane dominated or AD carry dominated. As a matter of fact, the last 2 years have been junglers. So
Yeah.
Ning and
If anything, that's the perfect reason for a troll
Yeah.
for a troll sport like or esport like League of Legends to be like, this year we're definitely going to give it to a support.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, if you believe in those kind of things, then go for it because all the supports have insanely good prices.
Yeah.
So, and I could say it because, like, think about it, right? This isn't a Yumi meta. This isn't a Janna meta. Like, this is a playmaking support metagame. If a support's gonna get it, it's gonna be this year. The support that got it before was Mata, and it was when it was Thresh and Blitzcrank.
Exactly. Yeah.
They were playmaking support. So, I think support is actually a pretty interesting. Like, most of the supports are intriguing in these markets, but generally speaking, I'm looking at the top 4 teams and just taking the undervalued players or the lower priced players because it's one series. A lot of things can happen in a series, right?
Yeah.
Like Dam 1, I'm not looking at Showmaker and Nogari. I know they're the stars of the show. I'm looking at Beryl at 9,000. I'm looking at Canyon. Canyon's probably the most expensive player I'll play. Canyon and Kanavi, I think, are the only two like favorites that I'm interested in because I think these two are they're like the 2 best teams in the tournament. And I think they're two best players at that position in the world, maybe.
So are there any players specifically that you want to call out so that you can get credit if it happens? You get to pick 3 players. Happens. 3 players.
3.
You pick 3, I pick 3, and then we're moving on.
Clid plus 6,600.
Okay, that's pretty good.
I'll say Beryl plus 9,000.
Interesting.
And I'll go Lumao plus 12,000. I'm going 2 supports.
Yeah, I'm going Loken 6,600.
Yeah, that's a good one.
I'm going Keria plus 10,000. And
Keria would be the other one.
Yeah. And Huanfeng is plus 20,000?
Yeah, dude. Yeah,
oh
dude.
my god.
That's like one of my favorite ones in the whole tournament.
Oh my god. I was gonna say Sword Art and I didn't look for Huanfeng earlier.
Put a beer on it and buy a car, dude.
Yeah, those 3 are that's a good one.
All of Suning, I think, are interesting.
Yes.
SOFM. I mean, 4,000 is pretty expensive, but SOFM has been just ballistic. Bin at 45,000.
Sure. Yeah. And
get out of here. He can pop off.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. All right. Let's go to champion specials, and this is originally why I reached out. So let's.
Yeah.
We have 3 things left. We have team specials, champion specials. Actually, let's do the other ones first because the champion specials are going to probably be more fun. Okay. Team specials. Furthest progressing play-in team. And let's just try to do these ones fast. LGD plus 110, Team Liquid plus 200, Unicorns of Love plus 550, PSG plus 700. This market doesn't make any sense to me. I feel like LGD, this number is wrong, right? Because like it should be.
So you like LGD a little bit more than me, but like I'm not getting enough value on Liquid or Unicorns to take a shot on them. I don't think.
Here, I feel like I'm not getting enough value on LGD. Like I would probably want to play them if they're like 200.
They're in a hard group.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's kind of weird. Okay, next one, World highest average game duration for a team.
For a team, I think this one's a sucker bet.
Then we'll move on. Most deaths in a map.
Also, kind of high variance sort of sucker bet. This could be a long game team, or it could be bad teams.
For this, would you rather play a good team because like I could see JDG having the highest deaths in the tournament because they get into the finals against top esports and they have some like kind of 25 death, 26 death, like crazy game. Like,
25 to 25 or something like that.
That seems interesting. So this is a good way to get value on one of those teams getting deep in the tournament.
Yeah.
Without having to bet at a bad number. Most different champions played. So again, we're looking for teams that probably go far because they
are going to get more games, more attempts to do this. So again, you want to look at teams that are probably going to finish in the top 4 or probably go to the finals if you can. And for that reason, the 4 favorites are priced in here. I think G2 is a little interesting. If you are a believer in G2, they tend to play a lot of different weird shit. So
so if a team like Fnatic plays the same thing over and over again. Yeah.
I think G2. I think G2 is probably the only one I'd venture a guess at here if I were to play it, but I'm probably not playing this one.
Okay, next one: most kills in a map. I like the deaths. I like the most deaths in a map angle more and more as we go away from it because these other ones just seem so obvious. So most kills in a map.
It doesn't. It's too variant. Like you could maybe look at. I would look at the teams that scored the highest in wins: Gen G, Damwon, Top Esports. The thing is, like the prices you're getting on it, it's not really enough. And this is one that's easily blown up. Like if the highest kill game, if a team gets 29 kills and that's like the high mark for the tournament,
Yeah.
then that's not that inconceivable for it to be anybody.
Yeah.
So
next up is team that wins the longest map. I think
sucker bet.
Yeah, I think it's the same angle as all the other ones. Like it's a little better because it's like plus 900 instead of plus 500, but you probably don't want to bet that. Team that wins the shortest map.
This one I'm interested in because you can kind of look at the teams that actually try to win games fast.
Or you could do it. Look at the group stage specifically,
Yep.
and you look for the losers that have the shortest games. Yeah, or like the teams where it's like, you know what, we're losing. Screw it. Who gives a shit? We'll play the next game.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's an interesting angle to take. That's going to require a lot more research.
I think Rogue at 10,000 is interesting because they're in a group with JDG and Damwon. And I think Rogue are a pretty good team. They're not necessarily going to get.
Don't you think that Rogue is the kind of team that is going to not win fast? Like they're going to be like, okay, we just got Baron.
I'm
took an inhibitor.
Sorry. I'm thinking in reverse.
Yeah.
I was thinking team that loses.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I was inverse.
Because with them it'd be like, okay, we're up by like 7,000 gold. We just took Baron. Let's wait until the next Baron, and then we'll win the game. Yeah.
Yeah.
Top.
I think it's, to me it's like, you got to think of like the explosive teams.
I would think like whoever plays against PSG Talon, I feel like that's a team that could just go off the rails and lose really fast.
I think especially this version of PSG Talon, which I think is a downgrade.
Yeah.
So
Team Liquid, I'd be afraid. Like I don't think that Team Liquid is going to lose a super fast game because they'll just try to stall out. I don't think that Rogue's going to do that because they're the same thing. Fnatic and TSM, same thing. FlyQuest, I could see losing pretty fast. Unicorns of Love, I want to bet against Unicorns of Love in every single bet the entire tournament. Top Chinese team. Do you have an opinion on that one?
Just not enough value. I think JDG's. I don't know. Don't bet top.
Yeah.
Like just don't bet top. I love Top Esports. I really do, but don't bet them in this market. If you feel pretty strongly about this, I think JDG is probably worth a shot.
And then same thing, Europe and North America. Do you like any of those? I don't really like any of those.
No, not really. Yeah, not really.
All right,
you'd hope we get a little bit better on Liquid.
So let's go into the tournament specials. These are pretty cool. A penta to be scored. I think everybody wants to bet yes, but you bet no, right?
Yeah.
It's like
so. I actually started the write up on this, and let me just pull it real fast. So there have been, where is it? There's been 18 since 2016. There's been 18 quadra kills and just a single pentakill in the main event. The pentakill was in 2018.
I do think that this year specifically, Showmaker getting a pentakill, it writes itself.
Yeah,
that's what I'm afraid of. Like if I bet no on this, that's specifically who I'm afraid of because they're the kind of team. It's not that I think they're gonna win a lot or like blow everybody out of the water. If they are winning, they are big enough trolls to wait.
Yeah, to try to get him
to let everybody respawn one time. And then everybody dives the fountain, and then he gets like a pentakill on Kassadin. I really think Kassadin. The fact that people like playing Kassadin right now increases this a lot.
Yeah.
And if we get
Tristana, I think is another one to note. She gets the resets and everything.
Yeah.
I think that's worth noting too.
If we get pushed into an Aphelios coming back randomly, like if a team doesn't draft against the right way, so
yeah. This is the kind of one you bet no, and if it happens, then whatever.
Yeah.
Like you caught.
Yeah. Highest CS by a champion in a map. Under. Yeah, that's crazy.
I'm all over this.
Yeah, people just think about the Froggen game, I guess.
This is one of my favorite bets in the whole tournament so far. And it kind of goes hand in hand with the next one, which is highest CS in a minute by a champion over 12 and a half or 12.0.
Average game
CS
time
per minute. Yeah, that's CS per minute. And again, we'll tie into that too in just a second.
Well, I'm saying average game time is the reason why you like the CS per minute being lower.
Yeah, so if you look across the world, there actually weren't that there were a lot of games. If you look at like the LCK specifically, right? The LCK is like kind of very farm centric. Like a lot of the teams focus a lot on never letting resources go to waste. So the farming numbers and the per minute farming numbers tend to be a lot higher in the LCK than other places, right? So that's not necessarily indicative of them being better. It's just the way that they play, right?
Yeah.
And if you look there, like there were only a handful of over 12 performances, period. Like, and that was in the regular season, playoffs, everything. So there was enough that it's relevant. If you factor in just the pace of play and the champions that are being played right now, I think to me the 500 is like a lock. Under 500 is like a lock to me.
Yeah.
Like that would be, if I had to do like a pick of the week for this show, that's it right there.
Mm-hmm.
Because the 12 I could see happening, but to get to 500, you need like a 40.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
You need like a 44, 45 minute game where someone is also getting like
a ridiculous CS per minute. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, around that 12 mark, right? So it's not that. I think it was like, I think you could get it at like 11.1 at 45 minutes or something like that. I did the math on it, and it's not that unfeasible. It's just this is basically, do you think we're going to see a 45-minute game where someone gets a ton of farm?
Yeah. So yeah. For the highest CS per minute, are the junglers the one who are typically getting that higher number because like the jungle camps count as 4?
Carries.
Really?
It's almost always 80 carries, yeah. Because what ends up happening is like as the game goes on, they get funneled all the farm a lot of the time. Not always, but a lot of the time.
I feel like I could see some jungle game where it's like a Graves and it's like, okay, well, I just took all of my farm and I took all the other junglers' farm.
Yeah.
And then I also took a
like
couple
that.
of the minions because I'm a greedy person. But whatever, we'll move on. Highest number of Baron slain in a map, over under 3.5, under 3.5.
This is again one of those like, do you think we're going to get a marathon?
The time,
game?
yeah.
There's a whole bunch of these props that we're going to get to in this thing that basically say, are we going to get like a 50+ minute game? It's like a different way of asking that question. The CS prop specifically to me sticks out because I think like you need multiple conditions and a long game, which is why I like it so mumuch. Whereas the other ones, it's just like, do we get a long game or not? And I think I like this a lot less.
The dragon one I think is pretty good. 7.5 isn't that ridiculous? You get both teams of 3 dragons, and then there's an the soul, and then there's another dragon. That's 8. That doesn't seem that bad.
Yeah, to me that's the kind of one that's going to happen like in like the semifinals or something. And you're gonna be live for it all tournament. And it's
actually, yeah. So like, JDG Top Esports, they had some of those, right? Oh man,
yeah, they had a couple
scary
marathon games. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Highest total kills in a map, over under 50.5. Under. So
under.
Do you have a number on what the highest was, or an angle why you think it's going to be under? Because if we get 27-24 in a JDG Top Esports game,
yeah, it's not that surprising.
Yeah.
But you kind of have to just weigh the odds that you're getting. Like, what's the likelihood that happens?
I think some of these teams are gonna. I think we're getting close to the point where teams are going to start actually playing the way they should play if they're an underdog.
And getting nervous.
Well, no, like the opposite of that. I think that teams are getting to the point where it's like, listen, we understand. We're 10% to win this game. We're going to do everything we can. We're going to make every risky play. The pot odds say we go for it, and we're just going to go for it. I think a team.
That's why FlyQuest are so scary, dude.
I feel like. I think that's the way that it should be done, and I think that teams are realizing that. So the teams that have gotten into this situation before, or like the teams with more experience, or just don't care, like are willing to YOLO. Those are the teams that are going to make this number.
It reminds me a lot of like what you're seeing in the NFL right now, where like it's like the plus EV evolution, where you're seeing teams going for it.
Exactly, that's exactly what I'm talking about. Yeah,
but it's not for any other reason other than people were stubborn and stuck in an old way of thinking.
Yep.
Like, it's literally mathematically, it just makes more sense to go for it in this spot, to go for 2, to, go for the touchdown now instead of the field goal, etc. Like all that kind of stuff. So,
if I'm down by 5 kills against Top Esports and I assume that I'm down 2,000 gold and there's a Baron fight coming up, I'm gonna fight the Baron because I'm gonna lose. I'm gonna lose a fight probably either way. So why not lose the fight?
This game doesn't get better for me. Yeah, the game doesn't get better for me. For what it's worth, I will say that you can look elsewhere and get 52.5 on this. So that's maybe an argument against it.
Sure, that's
worth considering.
That's a good thing to mention. Longest map, over under 50 minutes.
I'm on under. I'm on. This is again just like the Pentakill one. It's like I'm on under, and if it happens, then so be it.
Yeah. Okay. Most deaths by a champion in a map, over under 8.5. I feel like over is not really something that you see very often, right?
No. So in the play-in stage, there was, I believe, 1 player hit 9. I wrote it down here real set.
See, there's a difference.
Like
there's a difference between like the embarrassment of having 9 deaths and the embarrassment of losing to Top Esports like 17-7 in like a 22-minute game. Like, which one would you rather? I'd rather lose in 22 minutes and be like, yeah, we gave it a shot.
Yeah.
Instead of like, oh my god, we just played a 45-minute game against top esports.
The way I like this one more is when we get to champion props, because you can bet there's markets for which champions get this, and I think there's only like 2 or 3 candidates really.
Yeah. Okay, let's keep going. Most kills by a champion in a map, over under 14.5. So this is the Showmaker and Knight bet.
Duel, yeah, or Chovy even, like, yeah. I'm on under. There was last year. I don't think there was any.
In play-ins there was one, right? Like Legacy.
In play-ins there was a couple. In this year there was
Yeah.
a couple. Last year the most kills was 12, 12, 11, 11, 11, 11.
Okay. Next up, most lane Elemental Dragon. If you bet this, you have problems.
Yeah. This is the coin toss bet. This is the Super Bowl coin toss. Juice minus 110 on each side.
Yeah, actually, yeah. So at 260.
No.
At not even at 260.
What did you get? 500, 5.
3 of them are 260 and one of them's 300. Why is that?
Is it really? Am I not looking at this right?
That's 105%, right? Or 107%?
Oh yeah, never mind. This is plus EV. Holy shit! Why is Cloud 300? What the hell?
There we go. We figured it out.
Is them trying to sucker people? I've never ever seen this.
So wait, so then we should bet this.
Cloud. Yeah, just bet Cloud plus one other. It doesn't even matter which.
Wait, no, but shouldn't you bet all? Shouldn't you? Well, I guess.
Oh yeah, you just bet all 4.
You could bet all 4 and lock in a very small
and
one.
5 cents.
Yeah,
and make 5 cents.
Or
yeah.
or you can take a risk.
That's got to be an error.
We
dude.
gotta like I wanna kind of do that. Okay, next up, number of maps played in the knockout stage. Why would I like this? Seems like the kind of thing where you take those 5 minutes to figure it out, and it's going to be obvious.
You research it. Yeah.
So how would you go about this? It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 matches. They're all best of 5s. Knockout stage matches are best of 5.
It's
so
under.
35. You need to get to 27.5. So you're betting against sweeps, right?
No, I'm going under.
So you think that there will be sweeps then?
Yes. Yeah. Or more 3-1s than 3-2s.
Is that really is that all it comes down to? So if it's
yeah. Give me 1 sec. I'll actually look. This is like the one that I actually didn't prep yet. I have like all these things listed. I have all these notes for it. 4, 12, 8, 12, 16, 20, 24, 20, it was 27 last year. There was not a single 3-2 in the knockout stage last year. There was 1 3-0, the rest were 3-1s. So you had 24 games were part of 6 4-game series, and then 1 3-0 was the finals. So there's 27. So like, yeah. If you think there's going to be like multiple 3-2s, then this is an over. If you think there's going to be multiple sweeps, this is probably an under, because I think most of these series are probably going to end up 4 games. But I think this is a weird market. Because you could tell yourself a story where there's a bunch of games. Map total bets kill me. I don't even want anything to do with this, man. I've gotten busted on so many map total bets this season that
all right.
It's probably under.
Let's go next then. Shortest map, over under 20 minutes and 45 seconds. I think you're probably supposed to want it to be under.
Yeah, but it's over. So I think it's interesting that they put 20:45 as like the cutoff.
Because you can you could win a team fight at 19 minutes 30 seconds.
Yeah.
Run to Baron, knowing that it's spawning, kill Baron on spawn, go to their base. You'd probably have to win another team fight.
This is the Damwon double Herald, or Herald gets 2 towers top, patented play that they've done, right? This is the Damwon bet.
Okay.
Like they're the team to do this. They were plus 175 to have the shortest game. If to me in this tournament, and it's just by the nature of how these teams play. And the fact that I don't think there's any truly awful teams. Like there's no, like I don't think there's no Gigabyte Marines this year. There's no who's the worst team in this thing? Talon now, maybe Machi.
Probably one of the Western teams that we don't.
Or maybe
want to
FlyQuest.
Yeah.
Maybe FlyQuest even
It's probably Rogue.
See
My bet would be Rogue. I think that Rogue they had their high point of the season and everything since then has been down.
Yeah, but so you have to ask yourself do you see any of these teams legitimately not 2045 is extremely fast.
Yeah.
There's only a handful of those games that happened in the world this season, in the major regions.
I could see it being one of the good teams that loses a game very fast because they if it's 2 good teams against one another and they just continuously fight.
Why show? Why
Yeah.
stress out over this kind of thing? Yeah. I'm going over on this
All
one.
right,
I think
total
over's the
champions
play.
band 66.5. Do you have an angle on this one?
I haven't done the bands yet. I have a thought for the total Picton band.
I would
which
say
is
under.
Under.
Yeah.
So
And total
at-
champions picked definitely under.
yeah. So we have 70. In 2017 there were 79 total Picton band. 2018 there were 76 total Picton band. Last year there was 92, which was interesting. But you remember Cloud9 played a whole lot of nonsense. You had Cloud9, you had Gigabyte Marines, you had yeah, there were a lot of like weird teams in groups last year.
I guess you could.
So,
I guess you'd have to look into champion pools. That seems like a lot of work to bet.
So what I ended up doing is I tend to look at like what's the progression. Like, does the play-in stage? So in 2017 there were 67 champions in the play-in stage, and it moved up to 79 for the main event. So they added 12 champions. The give or take, it's between 70 and 80 games for the group stage, depending on like tiebreak, or for the main event, depending on like tiebreakers and how long the playoff series go. It's like in that ballpark, right?
Mm-hmm.
Range of games. The play-in stage was 38 this year. It's usually around that ballpark as well. So you have, almost double the amount of games. How many more champions realistically?
Not
do you
that many
see?
more.
So, yeah,
It'd be
I
pocket
kind of went
picks.
through the pools.
It'd be pocket picks,
Yeah,
yeah.
I went through the pools and kind of like, I basically took the play-in number, which was, what was it this year?
And the thing is, we have so many flex picks this year. Flex picks have infiltrated League of Legends like they have.
Yeah,
in
and
previous years.
flex picks kind of, and like if you look at it, like look at the amount of champions played, it was mostly like in the seasons where there was like dominant flex picks, like multiple flex picks getting picked and banned in every single game.
Mm-hmm.
Those 2017, 2018, those were the ones where we had way below 90.
Yeah.
Last year was a little.
Just think about the jungle pool. Like the jungle pool seems so small. The mid pool is pretty generic.
That's my big selling point. So there were 78 total in the play-in stage, which is it's 3 less than we saw in the last 2 years. And I don't realistically, who are we adding to this pool, right? Like Kazakhs, I could see being added. Maybe Trundle didn't get played. I could see maybe him getting added. Even all the niche AD carries got played. So I don't see any other different AD carries.
Aphelios was already played. I think Jinx could be played. Kog'Maw was already played.
Yeah, that's to me, it's like maybe there's some weird niche support pick that someone picks, but this is it.
Yeah.
I that was what I did. Maybe top laners. There was no Fiora. I think we'll see a Fiora at some point. Somebody will try it.
Mm-hmm.
But that's all I could. That's all I could come up with. It was 4 more champions. And I tried.
Cho'Gath.
Yeah, all right.
Fnatic.
Cho'Gath is 5.
If Fnatic does well in this tournament, I think we'll see some more champions.
Yeah. So I think Cho'Gath is in consideration, but all right. So that's 5.
Yeah.
5 added on to 78. That's 83. We're still way under.
Yeah. So we're thinking under,
right?
under for all 3 of these.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Let's go to the next segment. Champion specials. And this is the fun stuff. So
This is wild.
If you have some kind of hot take where you love a specific one, then obviously we can spend as much time as you want. The other thing I wanted to mention before we do this, the others on request thing is wild. I can't believe they would do that.
It's cool. They're trying to get people in on this.
Yeah.
So yeah, send others in. Ask them. Shoot them an email. What's his name? I'll give you the guy on Twitter.
Yeah,
he's the actual guy responsible. It's awesome. It's great.
Yeah. Let's just start then.
That gangplank there. That was me.
Oh really?
That he added to all this stuff. Yeah, that was me. So,
so let's do
my favorite play for this.
Highest
my favorite
total
play
damage?
for this whole thing.
Which one are you on?
Okay. So highest total damage, I'm basically taking. I'm splitting. I'm putting a 10th of a unit on 14 different champions that I think are viable spots. Now, the way you look at these, this is a bit of a needle in the haystack bet, but I'm kind of betting on.
But you're a
certain
degenerate,
things.
so you wanted to do it.
This is the most fun that I have.
Yeah.
Is that it was a thought out beer bet.
Yeah.
So I had, what did I write down here?
So while you look, I'll just give my thoughts to see where we line up. I think the kinds of things that you're looking for are champions with abilities that do % health, champions that have item builds.
Leandry's in their build.
Like Leandry's or Blade of the Ruin King. Or you want it to be a champion that forces the other team to build multiple tanks with those health shred items so that it all kind of plays into itself. So with that being said,
I'll add one more, which is you want champions that are good at dealing damage, even if it's not winning or being good, are dealing amount of damage in long games and that enable you to prolong those games. I think Ziggs is the one that sticks out for that.
That's a good point.
He's very good at that kind of thing.
Corky. So before you go, I would say Corky is an interesting one. I
All right,
think.
I'm counting the ones we lined up on.
Okay, Corky, Gangplank, because that's probably why you reached out.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
He was the winner of this last year, by the way.
Jinx, I think.
Hooney's Gangplank won this last year.
Jinx, I think, is interesting because although she's a crit 80 carry, if the meta is played around 80 carries, that's one that would do well.
I only didn't play. The only reason I didn't play Jinx is because I don't think we'll see her that much. She's not going to get that many opportunities.
So that's
but
3. Because you don't want to play the crit 80 carries in this one really. So like Sivir's interesting.
Yeah.
Like Sivir's a champion that I think would be cool to play, but I don't know if she'll actually be played, which is kind of scary. But I think Vayne and Twitch are the last two. Yeah.
I'll just run down who I have here. It's a bunch of 80 carries and then a couple niche picks. The first two that stuck out to me primarily for the price is we've seen some Ziggs. I don't know how much we're going to see, but when Ziggs is in games, he tends to just win this even on accident. Like he might not even win the game.
Yeah.
Karthus at 66-1. The reason being, when you pick Karthus, it's usually an ideal situation. Like you're not going to pick Karthus unless it's an ideal situation.
That's
right?
why Kassadin is so high.
Yeah, Kassadin. Yeah, that's why Kassadin's priced up. So the difference is you have Kassadin's 8-1, Karthus is 66-1.
Yep.
So this is I'm not firing the highest one I have is Ziggs. That's the highest favorite I'm firing because Ezreal's the likely the odds on favorite because he's going to get played. He's going to get a lot of opportunities to hit this number to hit the highest, and I could see it. Lucian at 33-1 might not see a lot of play, might see a lot of bans.
Yeah,
but you think like there's going to be a matchup where it's like Lucian Ornn or Lucian against a tank top lane where he just gets to wail on him and rack damage up over the course of a game. Vladimir is almost always exclusively in good matchups for himself, wailing on a tank like Shen. That counter pick, right? I did Tristana, Corky, Kog'Maw because I think you could see mid lane Kog'Maw.
Yeah, well, we saw it in
AP Cog. Yeah. Zoe because I think you're going to see a lot of her. She's going to get a lot of chances at it, and the price is good. Aphelios, Graves at 15,001. This is like the only jungler I have on. I have two junglers on here. I have Nidalee and Gangplank, or Nidalee and Graves, because I think they're going to get when they're not banned, they're going to get a lot of opportunities because they're going to be 100% presence. I think both of them are close to it. Like they're gonna either be banned in every game or they're gonna be in every game. We're gonna get to that in a second. That's like my favorite play for this. And then I think Twitch is the other one because he's like the choice hyper carry for this tournament. It seems like the teams like him. I don't know if that's just the play in teams, but there was a weird focus on him.
Yeah. Do you know if you have a champion that has an execute ability and it throws up that crazy number on the screen?
Yeah, like Vigar. If Vigar was on here, Vigar's an option too. So if you think someone's gonna play him, because
does that count? That counts, right? Like at the end of game screen. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Let's go next. Most assists in a map. So before you've done research on this already, right?
Yeah. So
let me give mine.
One,
let me give mine, and then so I think Yuumi is the obvious answer because Yuumi is a champion that could accidentally get 20 something. I don't like Leona. Don't like Rakan. Don't like Nautilus. Don't really like Karma. Bard is somewhat interesting. Senna is somewhat interesting.
Yeah. I think we're going to see a lot more Bard because of the the support players in this tournament. Yeah,
Lux,
I think also just given the players in this tournament too.
Lux is a very good option because she can shield 5 people at the same time. Thresh. I like Lux more than Thresh.
Lux and Yuumi all at 25-1. I think are all pretty good.
Yeah, I think that's where the list kind of ends. Yeah.
Yeah. The rest of these, the price isn't good enough. I was like sneaky looking at Lilia a little bit. Because she kind of like she's involved early and often, and a lot of times she just tags someone for damage and picks an assist up.
Yeah,
so.
I think you could also kind of try to think about it as which support is most likely to be attached to some kind of hyper carry, and how do they get there? That's kind of how you'd have to look at it. Are we moving on to most banned?
Yeah. So this one is the one I put the most work into. It's the we'll just kind of touch on all three. So there's most banned, there's most picked, and there's most combined picked and banned. The way I kind of looked at these things is I looked at historically which positions are getting banned out the most. I looked at the play-in stage for this year. I don't think the meta is going to be exactly like that, but I can kind of extrapolate a little bit from what we saw. And my read on this, my hypothesis after doing all the research is that the jungle pool is going to be very, very, very small for this tournament. It's going to be the play-in pool plus maybe 2 champions. Like I could see like Kha'Zix,
Nidalee, Graves,
struggle.
Kindred, Set.
Yeah.
Nidalee, Graves, Kindred, Set, Lilia. Skarner, Shen.
Yeah. Keep going. Lee Sin, we'll see.
Lee Sin, definitely.
Evelyn, we'll see.
Evelyn, yes, definitely. Karthus, maybe.
Yeah. So there were 14 jungle champions played in the play-ins, and that included a lot of these one-ofs. It included Skarner and Karthus and Silas Jungle and Elise and Echo Jungle.
Oh my God,
We
Silas
saw
Jungle,
a lot
get
of
outta
weird
here with
picks
that.
already.
Oh gosh.
That's what I said. Like, we saw a lot of weird picks already.
Yeah.
I would say that maybe one of these disappears and we don't see it, and we don't see anymore. There's a chance we don't see anymore, and it's just 14. So I think because of that, and because I think just the nature, if you look at so junglers were 5 of the top 3 presence champions. Presence being combined picked and banned in this tournament. Nidalee was number 1. Ornn and Orianna were tied for 2nd, and then Lilia and Graves were 4th and 5th. Like the next 2, they were only 1 apart.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if you feel the same way. I look at the junglers in this tournament. There's a couple that I think Jankos might throw this for a loop because he doesn't. I don't know if he plays all of these or will play all of these.
Yeah.
But every single jungler in this group is going to be proficient at these 3 champions, and I think they're probably the most important champions to ban in this tournament. I also think we're going to see a downtick in Orianna and Ornn bans. They got a lot of bans. They had the second most bans, not just presence.
Ornn is not ban worthy for the most
it's not,
part.
So here's the thing. I think the play-in teams banned it because it's a different level of play.
Exactly.
And keep in mind, there were like some
carry
top laners in these play-in stages. Like relative to the play-in stage, the top laners were carries, right?
Yeah, Armut was really good.
Yeah, like the thing is, I don't see. Look at the top laners in this tournament. They're not. If you march a naked Ornn out there, they're going to counterpick the shit out of it.
So I don't think you're going to be a lot more popular next round.
Yeah, I don't think you're going to see a lot of Ornn bans. Because there's more people want to play counterpicks. Orianna, I think, falls off a little bit too. I think she's going to get played a ton. I don't think she's going to get banned a ton because I think a lot of these teams are willing to handshake with her. Like, I think just a lot of matchups where they'll just be like, okay, like Orianna.
She's not going to be the most banned. I agree. She's not.
She's not going to be the most banned. She's not even going to be in the top. I don't think she's going to be in the top 5 most banned unless there's a situation. I also think because Akali is going to have an uptick. That's the other angle. I think Akali and Lucian are going to go up.
Yeah.
In priority with the players that we have for both top and mid lane.
I agree.
So I think those 2 upgrade. I think Ornn and Orianna downgrade, and then that leaves us with a situation where it's the 3 junglers. To me, it's the 3 junglers and Lucian are like basically the only 4 for this, and then maybe a lottery ticket on Akali because the odds are good.
Nidalee, Graves, Lucian, Lilia, Akali is what you're thinking.
Yeah. So what I did is I set up a situation where I I did Nidalee, Graves, and Lilia weighted toward Nidalee because I do think she's going to be the highest priority. I think teams just don't want to deal with it. She can just run away with the game too easily. I think the games she loses looks bad.
Exactly.
Look at the junglers in this tournament too. Is like I have a hard time thinking that.
I think it's kind of getting figured out. I think that
maybe.
The Nidalee stuff. I think that people went to Nidalee because they didn't think that there were many good options. I think Hecarim against Nidalee is very, very good, and I think that personally, I think Graves is the most important champion in League of Legends right now. But they don't seem to agree with me on that one, and I'm surprised.
So here's what I did with this. Combined between the most picked and the most combined picked and banned and most banned, you can kind of do it's like a triple bet or a tri bet on the trio of junglers. I'm betting that the trio of junglers is going to be the top end. One of those 3. So you weigh it in a way that no matter what, as long as one of those 3 gets it, then you profit.
Yeah.
Right. And then I put a couple longer shots on Akali and Lucian because the odds are very, very good on them. The only other people I would consider for this, let me pull this up real fast.
Brad.
The only other people I would consider for the combined one.
Oh, combined. Brad
would be Renekton, Shen, and Bard.
Brad.
I didn't bet Bard, but
Brad.
I could see that happening. Brad, yeah, sorry,
Brad.
I could see that happening. I think Renekton for combined most picked and banned again. Because he's one of these guys. There's almost always in the top 5 a champion that's picked way more than their banned because it just gets through and it's the best thing left and they take it. A lot of times it's an 80 carry.
Yeah,
I think in this case it's going to be Renekton.
For picked and banned, I think that we're going to go back. I think that it'll probably it's more likely to be an 80 carry than I think we realize right now. Because
here's my only issue with the 80 carry. My only issue with the 80 carry thing, like the 80 carries, like I don't think there's any one of them that's like that much more dominant than the others.
But if there are mid laners or junglers that are super dominant and like you want to get them onto your team and you want to make sure they're not in a bad matchup, then you could start convincing yourself like, we have these utility 80 carries, we don't need a focus bot lane.
It's just going to be Ashe and Caitlyn and Senna every game.
That's what I'm afraid of. I think that'll be for boring League of Legends, but this year specifically, we've had a lot of that.
Yeah. So like I think the whole thing with this is like tell yourself a story. I did the research, looked into all this stuff. I looked kind of at play-ins, extrapolated that maybe it's a little bit different because I think the players are going to be different. I think more emphasis on mid laners and supports.
I can assure you the players will be different.
Oh no, for sure. Yeah, for sure. Like, do you agree? Like, there's probably going to be more of an emphasis on the mid laners and supports just because of the caliber of players we have at those positions compared to the play-in caliber.
I think,
right?
Yeah. So I think mid lane, the fact that Lucian and Akali were not played more in play-in stage means that the teams at play-in stage cannot win with those in scrims against better teams. Yep. That's what happened.
And yeah, Akali too. It was
What I say? Lucian and Akali.
Oh, did you say Akali? Sorry. Yeah, you did say Akali. My bad.
Because think about it, like they steamroll games. When you see the best players in the world playing these champions and you can't play it, there's a problem.
Yeah. And even still, Lucian was the 4th highest presence.
Wow.
I think Lucian's live to maybe be the number 1 here.
Definitely, yeah.
It's just so annoying, like the flexibility of it. It's just so annoying. It screws with all your matchups and it opens up all the AP junglers. Mm-hmm. So I think it's just kind of a one stone kills multiple birds situation.
Yep. So let's go to we have most CS in a map. I feel like, is this another one of your Gangplanks you wanted, or Corki?
This is these are kind of like longer shots. Let me see what I did for most CS in a map.
Why is Jin at 800? What is going on there?
Because they think he's going to be played a lot. I think a lot of these correlate to what they think is going to be picked a lot. It correlates strongly to the picked market, not the banned and combined picked and banned.
If Jin is played a lot at Worlds, then I'm going to send out a lot of tweets that say, haha, Jin, upset. Or like, Jin sucks, or like, haha, that's what you get for picking Jin every game.
To me, it's like, pick a hyper carry. Take your pick. One of the longer range. Don't take anybody at the top of the table here.
I'm surprised that Corki is so low. Yeah.
Yeah, Corki, Aphelios, I think would be the ones I look at.
And I'm surprised Gangplank's not on this list. Gangplank is the champion that will normally hit something like this. Okay, next up, most deaths in a map.
Right, so this is what I was talking about earlier. To me, like, think of the champions that die a lot in a game. Even in like a win, for instance.
Supports.
Obviously supports, yeah. So think of the support champions that die a
Nautilus.
lot. Nautilus, because he hooks, misses, hits the wall, and he's dead, right?
Always
Leona
Nautilus.
throws an E, oh shit, I shouldn't have did that. Yeah. Dies. Even though she's tanky cell, right?
Yeah.
Those two are the favorites for a reason. Nobody was close.
Kench at 33.
None of the other supports were close. Yeah, I like Kench because the odds are good.
Mm-hmm.
What did I write down? I think that was it for those. And I liked Kench just because the odds were really, really good. You can kind of create like a synthetic like try bet with those two and do like, 1 unit on Leona, 1 unit on Nautilus, and like a quarter on Kench, and
what do you think this number is going to be? What do you think the most deaths in a game is going to be for one of these champions?
8 or 9, probably.
Okay,
that's why. I mean, the total was 8.5.
So, I think Set is interesting at 12 just because of his flexibility.
Yeah. And he's going to be seeing a lot of play too. That's the other thing.
And then I'm surprised that I think Ornn should be on this list.
Ornn is definitely a candidate, especially considering the willingness teams have to just.
Or is Renekton on this list?
Damwon against Ornn, dude. Damwon against Ornn. They're going to play Camille. They're going to set a dive up. They're going to dive him. He's going to get back to lane. They're going to dive him again. They're going to take the Herald. They're going to dive him against the towers. Like
that's what I would kind of look for. I would also try to think about which teams, like it would be what support champions do some of these good teams play? Because once good teams play against good teams, anything can happen.
Yeah,
like any of these crazy numbers are in play.
Bard was interesting to me, but I wanted a better number on it.
What about
like Bard
Lucian?
and Rakan both?
Lucian's probably a good bet for this too.
Yeah,
because Lucian's the kind of champion where like you can just
get behind. He has to play aggressive.
Yeah.
I thought Blitzcrank caught my eye a little bit too, because if someone plays it, you've seen the games where Blitzcrank just goes 0-7. It just or goes 1-6 and his team wins the game or something like that.
Yeah, this is another one where I feel like there is an edge to be found somewhere in this list, but I would need to do a lot more research on the champion pools of the teams and then think about like, because the angle that I'd want to play is which champion is going to be popular with the bad teams because they're playing passive League of Legends.
Yeah.
Because then they set themselves up for getting dove a lot and stuff like that.
Yeah, I looked at the play-in, and Leona and Nautilus were played a lot, and I think they're simple, they're straightforward.
Yeah.
I think teams that are bad want an I go button, and I think they're the easiest ones, especially given the jungle pool right now wants to be more, carry oriented.
Do you know which champion died the most in play-ins in one game?
The champion that died the most was Nautilus died 8 times. It was Snowflower against Legacy, and then Leona had a few 7-death games, and Nautilus had a few 7-death games as well.
All right, let's go to.
To me, I bet Leona and Nautilus, an amount each, and like I'll take the whatever happens, because I think they're going to be 2 very highly played champions in the support role, maybe less than they were in the playing stage,
Yeah.
but you're still going to see them a lot. So
let's go to most kills in a map. I think Kassadin is the easy bet. I think Aphelios is way under. Aphelios is gonna come back. I'm like 99% sure that's gonna happen.
Yeah, I put this one. I thought was interesting because I thought the top of the table was actually priced pretty well. I think my favorite one in terms of like value is Tristana at 5,000 plus 5,000. Like 50 to 1, that champion has a pop off game. Like that's the kind of champion that you see like 5 or 6 times in this tournament, and one of them's like a 12 kill game.
That's kind of. I think I like.
Kassadin. I think
Aphelios.
Kassadin's definitely in play. I think Corky's in play.
If I'm playing the angle that you were just mentioning, I think I like Jinx, Corky, Aphelios more than Tristana. But those are some of the champions I would have said if I didn't have a list in front of me and I was thinking about what kinds of champions I would want to bet on this. It would be like hyper carries, but then you need to. The problem with the hyper carries is they're not played as much as the other ones.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Exactly. So you're kind of a lot of these most markets, you're kind of weighing the percentage of played, like how many games is this champion going to be? How many opportunities are they going to get to be the worst or to be the best?
Yeah.
So that kind of factors into it. But I also in these kind of situations, like I looked at this the same way I looked at the damage one, which is not exactly the same, but the same idea, which is like the only time these champions are getting picked is when the situation is going to be good for them.
Yeah. True.
So maybe it doesn't matter that they don't see as much play because the situation they get picked in is only going to be good.
Yeah.
So,
well, I mean, that was all of it. So those are all the prop bets. Yeah. Those are the futures. We looked at it all. You're welcome.
Yeah.
Are there any?
It's a lot.
Are there any final thoughts you want to leave with the people?
Enjoy Worlds. Seriously, like we didn't get March Madness for a lot of people this year. This is the closest a lot of people are going to get.
Yeah.
Also, this should be a really good tournament. Like I think there's not a lot of duds here. I think there's a lot of teams that could win it.
Mm-hmm.
I think the top of the table is extremely interesting. Just like even stylistic matchups between the teams, I think is very, very interesting. So, I think also just friendly reminder to everyone. Just remember weird stuff can happen in group stage. Don't overreact to one game loss. It's you get best of 1 double round robin. Everyone was freaking out when G2 punted a bunch of games in the middle of the season.
Yeah.
And they looked bad, but look what ended up happening.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Like, usually the cream rises to the top.
Yeah.
So, and I would say there's almost always one team that's going to way underperform. Just out of curiosity, like who do you think is going to be like the surprise downer this year?
Damwon.
Okay.
Again.
I think that's a reasonable take. I was actually chopping it up.
Maybe that's not a good answer.
Who could be more disappointing than them?
The team that would be the most disappointing if they underperformed would be probably.
I kind of think top. Dude.
I was gonna say top. It's top esports.
Not just because they're the favorite either, but they have like the 2 players that everyone's in love with.
Exactly.
And Jackie
top
loves,
esports,
deservedly so.
Top esports, JDG, and Damwon. All 3 of those teams are live to really disappoint people, and it's not necessarily. It could even be a spot where like they don't even play that bad, but they just get a bad draw in the quarterfinals, and like one of these good teams.
3.
Yeah, exactly. So
if they have to play like 3 best of 5s against insane teams, which could totally happen, like if they just have to play good teams back to back to back and they lose one of them, then all of a sudden, and
it'd be pretty damaging, I think, for like the perception of the LPL. Actually, no. I guess for that reason, Damwon is the biggest problematic underperformer, because then we're gonna have to listen to this whole LCK has done stuff for another year. And like, LEC, look at them. They got to the quarterfinals against and then got destroyed. Look at them.
I guess that's another note I'll say, which is like, this happens every year. The good teams are good. Period. you should use strength of competition as a tiebreaker, like closer to a tiebreaker than a deciding factor for how good a team is.
Yeah.
Right. I think like I know you like LGD more than I do, but LGD came into this tournament way overrated, way overrated because everyone was just saying, to the whole thing.
Yeah.
Like everyone was just like, oh yeah, they're an LPL team. They're going to do really well. They're going to go really far. That might end up being the case.
The day before the play-in stuff started, I started to think to myself like, everyone is just taking Mad Lions and LGD for granted, and there's like a 0% chance that they fail. And then I was like,
no, there was definitely like that was the thing. It's like, yeah, like I'm not disagreeing that they weren't going to get out of groups. I'm not saying I didn't think they would do as bad as they did. I'll say that. But I was like, that's when it was like, there's a non-zero chance they don't win the group.
I started getting afraid about LGD before the game started because I was thinking to myself, like, everybody has these extreme expectations for them. Even underperforming a little bit is going to be a big problem, and then they severely underperform. But with like Mad Lions, I feel like Mad Lions, kind of the same thing.
Mad Lions frustrated me because I think I said this on our podcast this week, but like Mad Lions frustrated me because they had problems that have been problems for a while now, and they didn't adjust. Now maybe they did behind the scenes, and we just saw 4 stage games, and that was it, right? Like, or whatever, however many it was, 7 or whatever. They're also rookies. They're young. This is the first time they traveled. They've only played like a dozen LAN games period this year before this. So like they had a lot against them that I think people just brushed off.
That's a good point. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. The point being, it should be an interesting tournament. Expect the unexpected. There's almost always some crazy shit that happens, and just enjoy it.
The next 4 days, specifically, are going to be a lot of fun. All right,
I'm off this week, man. I'm dialed in. I'm ready to go.
Yeah, me too. All right, well, Gelati, thanks for stopping by. You can find him on Twitter at Gelati, and you can also find him at the esports department. Yeah. But that's it. Thanks for watching. That was a long video, but you know what you were getting yourself into. And
That's right.
Enjoy Worlds. And we will talk to you later.